Okay, there we go. Right, I'm going to share my screen. Right, present full screen and present. Great. Can we all see this?
All good.
All good. Good stuff. Right. So, yeah, welcome to this webinar. So, SEO trends for small business in 2023 and beyond. I'm really proud to have two great guests on that we've got today. So, we've got Matt from Director of SEO Partnerships at Uberall, and we've got Mordy, Head of Brand SEO at Wix, and myself, the CEO. So, I'm just going to hand it over first to Matt. If you just want to just introduce yourself, Matt, tell people a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll pass on to Mordy to do the same.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you, Andy. So yeah, I'm Matt. I'm Director of SEO Partnerships at a company called Uberall. Been specializing in local SEO for the last 9-ish years. Started off at a small digital marketing agency as local was just kind of taking off. And I was the guy that, the CEO said, you got to figure out this local stuff. What's this map pack? And it was, Google Places at the time, which I'm showing my age there. So I was at the agency, kind of built the local SEO offering there and wanted to go deeper in local. Ended up as head of customer success and sales at a company called Bright Local, which was a local MarTech company working with brands like, I've worked with brands like the Home Depot, Hilton Hotel, Krispy Kreme in the UK, guys like Co-op on the kind of larger brand side, and then also SMB side. Most of the kind of companies I've worked with have been agencies managing local businesses, and that ranges from agencies looking to start offering local SEO and really wanting to learn what it is they need to do, what are the fundamentals, all the way up to agencies with tens of thousands of clients that are looking to really scale their operation. So yeah, I've been with Uberall now for 18 months, mostly working with kind of large scale agencies managing SMBs and how do they operationalize their SEO, reduce the time it's taking them and improving their results through the Uberall platform, which is all around managing local listings and Google My Business optimization alongside reviews and local social posts. So yeah, excited to be here. Thank you for the invite, Andy.
No worries. It's good to have you here from a kind of a local perspective when we talk about SEO trends as well, around those local listings and the map pack. So yeah, and yeah, Google Places, I remember that very well. They've changed names so many times. I still use GMB. I think that's the one that I'll probably stick with for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I will apologize because I will say GMB 95% of the time. So if you hear GMB, just please translate it to GBP.
Will do. Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. And Mordy, over to yourself.
Thanks for having me. First off, nice to see everybody here. I'm Mordy Oberstein. I'm the SEO brand at Wix. I started off, I've been at SEO for 9-10 years already. Started off at Rank Ranger, which was it is an SEO platform, a CMO of that company for a while. I've been at SEMrush. I still consult for SEMrush. I was their head of communications. Now I'm at Wix, and what we basically do on my team is to sort of help advance the Wix platform around SEO, create partnerships like the one we have with Uberall and with SEMrush and with SE Ranking and with Lumar, to sort of advocate for the SEO community to the platform side, and of course to educate our users and future customers about what Wix does around SEO. We produce a heap of content around SEO. We have an entire SEO learning hub, which you can check out. We run a podcast called SERPs Up, so check that out. Gratuitous plug for myself there, but we try to put out a lot of educational resources around SEO for all sorts of people, whether you're on the agency side or if you're an SMB, if you're a site owner, or if you're an SEO. So it's really a lot of positioning, education, messaging, and product advocacy around SEO over at Wix.
Brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, as I said, right, we've got two absolute experts here who are going to be very relevant for this conversation, because I think a lot's happened in search, in technology in general, right, especially over the last, 7 months. And it's really, I think for one of the first times in history, we can look at Google and say, what do we think Google will even look like in a year's time? We're not exactly sure. I don't think there's any point really in the last, however long I've been in SEO, 12 years, where we could say that. So yeah, I think this is should be a good conversation. You can get our opinions and watch this back in a year's time and see where we're right and where we're wrong. Probably be wrong for most of it, but yeah, we'll give it a go. So let's go through today's structure. So I thought we'd break it down to 4 areas. The first is the SEO fundamentals. So are they still important for SEO? You know, SEO is evolving. Websites are evolving. Do the fundamentals, the basics of SEO still matter, right? For small businesses, right? Which is, you know, when we talk small businesses, what we're typically thinking here is kind of time poor kind of customers, right? Who just want to get the best results, the quick results they can without going too much in the detail and becoming absolute SEO experts. Next, the impact of AI. I mean, we've all been talking about that so much over the last few months. What impact is it having now on a day-to-day basis from what we're doing at Hike, what Wix are doing, what Uberall are doing, what's impacting search, what's working, what's not working, so we can talk about that. Google search experience. So this is the new updated look of Google, which if you've not seen yet, I'll show you an image of that when we come to that. But it's very exciting because that could be a huge impact in terms of the opportunity for SEO traffic that you could potentially get in the future, right? And it's how's Google evolving? It's going to change with this generative AI. And then a question and answer section. So this is really important, everyone. If you've got questions, pop them in the chat bubble. So if you've used Zoom, you'll know that it's just on the little bar at the bottom. It says chat. It's got 7 in there at a minute. Post your questions in there as we go. And then when we come to the Q&A section at the end, I'll go through there and hopefully we'll get through as many questions as we can within the hour. So yeah, we'll leave probably 15, 20 minutes at the end to go through Q&A. And if it's a question, a general question, or it can be a question specifically for Mordy or for Matt, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, pop your questions in the chat box. We'll go through them at the end. All right. So the SEO fundamentals, how do they still matter? This is a question we get a lot because one of the things that we do, the Hype platform, you must use the Hype platform, you'll know that we focus a lot on helping our users get those SEO fundamentals right, whether that's from initial strategy to on-page, et cetera, et cetera. But people going, does it still matter, right? Because we all hear these new terms, you know, even if we go back over the past 5 years, the kind of let's say buzzwords, they're important, but they have been kind of the buzz topics around, you know, crawlability, page speeds, core web vitals, mobile first indexing, mobile friendly, etc. And sometimes it's like, well, do the fundamentals matter now that Google's evolving and search is evolving? So yeah, I guess where I'd like to start here, I guess is Mordy, because you're in the website builder world, right? And that's where you really put down these fundamentals, mostly anyway. If we're looking at keyword research strategy and maybe on-page SEO, what are you seeing in terms of the need for Wix, maybe other website builders, to do from an SEO fundamental level? Are you still making sure that those fundamentals can be done? How important is it for you to get your users to do that?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's incredibly important. It's incredibly important across the board for a variety of reasons. You know, if you want to make the argument that, you know, the fundamentals won't get you onto the field, they will get you into the ballpark so that you could eventually get onto the field. But at the same time, I'll quote Glenn Gabe, who's a famed SEO expert. You never know what's going to move the needle, right? So throw the kitchen sink at it.
Yeah,
it could. We actually just recorded one of our podcast episodes. We didn't release it yet, about SEO fundamentals and how powerful they are. And what we did was we actually crowdsourced examples of folks optimizing a title tag or adding alt text to an image and what that actually did to organic traffic. And you never know what those little things can do.
Yeah.
At the same time, to a search engine, Google has done a lot to sort of democratize the web. There's something called passage ranking, where Google is trying to go deep into a unstructured web page to be able to really understand a couple of sentences in order to say, okay, this page is relevant for this query because of these few sentences. And that does kind of democratize the web for folks who are maybe not focused on SEO a little bit. And it's very important to Google to do that. But still, even if you have a page like that, say it's very unstructured, there's, the hierarchy is all messed up. You go from an H3 to an H2 to an H6 to, back to an H3.
Yeah.
It does send a signal that maybe this page isn't of the highest quality. And, one of the, a classic example is Google has said, multiple H1s are fine. But I still think it's the best practice to have one H1 because it does show that you understand how page structure works, which means it sort of gives off the feeling of, well, maybe this page is of a certain quality because you do understand how page structure works fundamentally. And that's why we do double down on this. We just released an SEO assistant for your blog pages, for event pages, that basically does an on-page audit. And you pick a focus keyword. There's a SEMrush integration for that. And we'll tell you, like, yeah, your title tag is missing the focus keyword, your alt text, the H1s, the H2, the H3, all those, very fundamental things, because you really can't move forward unless you handle the basic things. And again, you don't know what's going to move the needle. Sometimes literally changing an H1 or an H2 and really optimizing them, forget ranking, it can help Google understand the page that you're now indexed. So it's really important.
Yeah, I think the H1's a really interesting one, because Google are very diplomatic with their answers. When, can you have more than H1? Yes, you can. Technically, you can have more than one H1. And I think when Google answers that, they're saying that, yes, you can have multiple H1s. They're not saying whether that's best practice for SEO, though, right? They're not then saying, well, actually, we use the H1 to perhaps think of, it's like, think of a newspaper, right? Your main heading is what attracts people to read the content. So that main heading has so much power in for people to understand what that content's about. And that's synonymous how Google uses a H1. And yes, you can have loads of big headings on your page, but if you have just one, then it's going to get slightly more weighting to the importance of the phrases used, or Google's understanding it, from just that one, rather than having 5 on the page, let's say. And I know you can have it in different areas and for different parts of the page, but it has a weight test, the H1. So it doesn't always necessarily mean that, what they recommend isn't always the best for SEO in terms of the fundamentals.
Yeah, certainly having one H1 at the top, I saw John Mueller talk about this thing yesterday, before yesterday, as an SEO, you want to make things as easy as possible for the search engine. And yeah, you can have multiple H1s, and Google could probably figure out that the first H1 is the main title of the page and the 5th H1 is not, but just make it easier for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, I don't know if you want to chip in around how you see the fundamentals of SEO still playing a part, or if they don't, maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency. Everyone talks about SEO moves so quick and it's always changing. I think what we all know from probably being in the space in a while for such a while is the fundamentals rarely change. I think elements change slightly, but in terms of like the core things of what you want to focus on, you still want to do your keyword research in Keyword Planner or whatever free tool, or Hike or wherever, right? You still need to build that initial strategy of, okay, these are the most commonly searched phrase. These are the ones with commercial intent, right? I don't want to put my homepage title tag as how to fix a toilet. I want Plumber London, right? I think those fundamentals aren't changing massively. I think probably the change I've seen is the introduction of AI. As an SEO, or as someone working on their own SEO, it's how do you make that process faster, instead of maybe starting from scratch with ideas for keywords. Maybe you're starting with ChatGPT and you're saying, hey, the prompt is, you're an SEO expert, I'm a local plumber in London, please can you give me some keyword ideas? Now, what we know with AI is it's not perfect, it's not always right, and I kind of see the fundamentals being sped up, and using those prompts to kind of shortcut your path to success. But I still think there needs to be, an element of human intelligence to go and review that and check that against other data sources. But I think, there's a tendency to think with it changing so quickly, it's radically different from how it was 2-3 years ago. I think the fundamentals, up until now have been fairly similar with some minor shifts. Yeah,
agreed. And the way I try to position it to customers, and it's more along lines of what you were saying earlier as well, is like, if we use the kind of the generic way of saying, the Google come out, like, there's 200 ranking factors, right? Now, whether there's more, there probably are, there's loads, right? But essentially there's this big, when Google looks at your website and tries to determine out of 2 websites which one should rank higher than the other, it's looking at lots of different factors on the website. And we'd often see, it's one of my pet peeves, people will be like, you can't rank if you haven't got, a page speed of A on Google, page speed Insights Explorer, right? You just can't do it. If your website, loads in less than 3 seconds, you just won't rank. And then it's like, so I always try to tell people is that, imagine each ranking factor is like a lever, right? And you can pull each one, right? And you can pull some and you can pull others, but there's no one ranking factor. There's no one lever that you pull that means whether you're going to rank or not. They're all just individual levers, right? And you want to pull as many of them as you can, right? Because, you might be up against a competitor that's been around for longer than you. It might be a business down the road that's had their website for 20 years and your website's a year old, right? So you're not going to beat them when it comes to the lever of domain age or page rank, you know, your domain authority, because you can't beat them on links because you've not been around long enough. But if you beat them on 99 other things, right, then you can still outrank them. And you don't know what your competitors are doing or where they're better than you. So just pull as many levers as you can, right? That's kind of the fundamentals there. Do as much as you can. I think that's kind of one of the key things. I think, Mordy, one thing that I wanted to ask is, with on-page SEO, where do you see the future of working at Wix especially? Where do you see websites going technically? You know, like, what's the future of websites and how's that going to impact on-page SEO?
I think there's a lot, right? So first off, I think on-page SEO is always going to be important. I think, again, it speaks to overall site quality, much the way that, you know, technical SEO, I always quote Krista Carter, who is our head of SEO communications here, that when you have a well-optimized, from a technical point of view, website, for example, page speed or Core Web Vitals, a very small ranking factor, all things being equal. Google's come out and said that, studies have come out and said that, Barry Schwartz will write in every article, it's a small ranking signal. Mm-hmm. But it does, outside of like conversions and user experience itself, which I think is far more important from a ranking point of view, it does signal to Google that the website is being well maintained, that you're focused on the website, you're paying attention to the website. So I think all of those things kind of form a quality picture for Google. And I think, yes, there are 200 ranking factors and whatever, but I think a lot of what I'll call the meta factors are actually more important, quality being one of them. Google saying, okay, let's look at these couple of websites. Are they quality? Are they of good quality? And that really is like a meta ranking factor. There are ranking systems that help Google do this. A helpful content update system does this, but the quality is not a quote unquote ranking factor per se. It's meta, right? It's okay. Now that we've determined that out of these 10 websites, these 5 are quality, I'm oversimplifying this obviously. Okay, which one, you know, is more relevant than which one is this factor and that factor? Or if there's like, you know, well, they're all the exact same thing. So Core Web Vitals often comes in as a tiebreaker, Google has said, between the various factors or the various pages that you're looking at. Yeah. And I think what to answer the second part of your question in terms of where websites are going, I think, leaving particular companies aside for a minute, I think the technology in general around the website builder across the board, for the most part, obviously you have to dive into different providers, and I'm not going to put my thumb on the scale for Wix. Obviously, I'm pro Wix, but the technology around these platforms has improved exponentially. And you've seen Google talk about this, you've seen John Mueller talk about this, to the point where they let you focus more on content and less on worrying about, the underpinnings of the website, the infrastructure of the website, the technical infrastructure of the website. That's not to say, by the way, that you can't, depending on the platform. Like, I'll just tell you the way we function is we try to automate as much as possible. Let's say you're a content marketer or you're an SMB. You don't want to have to worry about, let's say, structured data markup for your products. It's not your thing. You don't understand how it works. You don't know how to write the code. By the way, there are great tools that help you generate the code. You can just copy and paste it. But let's say it's not your thing. So we'll automate all of your product data markup for you. That's not to say that if you are advanced in that you couldn't go in there and start customizing it and adding different modifications to the code to, up the level of possible rich result that's possible for you on the results page. So what a good platform should do, in my honest opinion, is be able to say, the defaults are there. The automation is there. If you want to go in and be able to customize aspects of that, you're free to do that. And that sort of makes the decision yours. And I think that's where the future of websites are going. You should be able to decide what's important for you and for your business, or for you and your context and your niche, to be able to have the automation that lets you do a lot of the things that maybe you don't want to focus on, so that you can focus on what you should be focusing on. And to give you the customization option, so that if that is important to you, you can go in there and obviously optimize it for lack of a better word, to your liking. Yeah. I think that's the future of website construction going forward.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, when I first started working SEO 11 years ago, that the customization, the inbuilt SEO ability of platforms like Wix, Shopify, etc. The inbuilt ability now is kind of where it's everything you need, pretty much, right?
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you do see WordPress's market share shrinking, slowly over time, I think because of it, I think because people are realizing that I don't want to have to deal with the server. I don't want to have to deal with reliability. I don't want to have to deal with janky plugins that are breaking the website. And the other platforms sort of caught up to where WordPress was at. And I think now you have real options in front of you.
Yeah, it's interesting. So at Hike 2 years ago, we know what website builders people use in the platform. 2 years ago, the WordPress WooCommerce share was about 70% of all of our websites. It's now dropped to just below 50%. And that's in 2 years. And it's quite a good like snapshot of the kind of websites. Well, let's move on. I think we've come to a consensus. The fundamentals still matter. So we'll give the thumbs up there. Right. Impact of AI now and up and coming. So how is AI impacting us now and upcoming? So, I mean, it's having such a huge impact, and a lot of people would say beneficial, but I'm gonna let Matt talk first. It'd be interesting to hear how AI is happening from a local point of view. Because I mean, a lot of our customers, local's massive for them, right? They are local service-based businesses, or they're agencies that serve that. The Google Map Pack, the GMB listed is so important for them. How is AI helping that? I mean, we can go later maybe onto how it's helping website optimization, but local is something it's not been talked about much. So do you want to kind of give us an overview there, Matt, if it is helping?
Yeah, I think in terms of, again, kind of like helping SEOs complete actions, getting inspiration for content or different suggestions. I think it's helping that process. I would be cautious of just like taking any content from AI and publishing it. Again, I still think you need that layer of human review. I think the other thing that you need to consider is, specifically when you're a small business, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how can I compete with a huge multi-location brand that has all of these links, all of this marketing budget that I don't have? I'm just a one-stop, shop, owner-operated business. And I think that the local businesses that I see succeeding against these big brands are having more of a kind of personal touch on their profile. So they can do things like have a welcome video on their Google business listing, from the owner, which is really easy to do if you're the owner of your business because you're really invested in it. If you go to a massive franchise brand or a corporately owned brand, you're not really going to get the local managers from doing that. So I think the personalization piece is a bigger piece of how, local brands can kind of win in search. Mm-hmm. In terms of AI, Google's, I guess, rolled out a couple of things that are interesting. One is SGE, which hasn't changed the local results a huge amount. There's a slightly different interface and it gives kind of fewer options. Full transparency, for me personally, I don't think it's going to make a huge impact in terms of how search actually operates, because I still think that you need to do research on who you're looking to hire for your local services or whatever. I think if you're in a new city and you're looking for coffee, you'll probably just take, the top result from SGE, which is absolutely fine. But if you're looking for a lawyer, and your life's on the line, you're looking for a medical practitioner, I still think you're going to go deeper. And I kind of feel like AI at the moment is really good for kind of task-based search. And what I mean by that is like, hey, I need to make an authentic Italian marinara sauce. For that, AI is absolutely brilliant. Or, I'm looking to change this HTML code on my website, but I want it to do this, but it's doing that. Mm-hmm. Things like that, AI search, absolutely fantastic. For the local commercial elements, I'm not sure Google's quite figured out how that's going to work and how that can improve the kind of search behavior from the local side.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really good point. And it's something that I've thought a lot about. Within the Hike platform, a lot of our users haven't been doing SEO for a long time. So we're kind of educating them, especially when they're building their keyword strategy. And we're educating them on what keywords to pick and where to optimize those keywords. One of the big things that we try to do is we distinguish keywords into two categories, which is either an informational or a transactional keyword. Now, in more advanced SEO circles, there's navigational, there's brand, etc. But as a general rule of thumb, you can kind of put everything into whether it's informational, looking for information around something, that could be a brand, or that could just be how to make a cup of tea, or transactional, where the search is how to buy tea bags, right, or whatever, right, or how to find SEO agency, right? So informational, transactional. Now, informational seems to work lovely with generative AI content, right? Because if I ask ChatGPT, Claude, Google Bard, right? If I ask that, it gives me great results, right? And it seems better than me looking through, because I'm looking for information, and it's concise. It gives me good information. It's all in one place, rather than clicking on a website that takes 5 seconds to load. It's got loads of ads. It pops up a cookie banner. It then pops up a newsletter banner, right? And it takes me ages, all these adverts. So that's a lot better. But where I'm not sure, or I'm not sure how Google can do this, and this will lead on to the next slide where we talk more around SGE, but in terms of how it can help is around that transactional side, right? If I'm looking for, like you mentioned, right? So let's say I'm looking for I want to buy Nike Air Max Air Jordans, right? Do I really want a generative AI answer to say, hey, this is where you should buy it from? Or do I want to look at the different options? Or maybe Car Garage, for example, and look at their reviews. So how Mordy, what do you think around the impact of AI and where it can be used in SEO and search? I guess around that area. Oh, unmute. There we
Thank
go.
you.
Sorry about that.
No, all good. I think what AI is, I think ultimately speaking, if you're out there, if you're a brand, I think you're going to see, if you're a business, you're going to see that the consumer's content expectations around what they're looking for is going to change. And you think you already see that. I think you see that in people going to, say, TikTok looking for content because they want that kind of personal experience. Kind of like, hey, I don't want static content that some brand spun out, or I don't want 5 easy ways. I really want to understand somebody who actually has experience, and somebody who actually used this thing, or somebody who has real understanding of the topic. And I think what you're going to see is a flood of content. And if you're listening to this or watching this, I warn you, because AI does solve a real pain point. Content is hard. Content takes time. And you may start dabbling in it and then realize, like, wait a second, this is a lot more work and a lot more complicated and a lot harder to do than I thought it is. Actually being a good writer, it's an art, right? I come from the content side of SEO. I can tell you there are people who are good at writing and there are people who are not good at writing. Just because I speak the language doesn't mean I can write in the language professionally. And AI kind of solves that problem, it seems like. It's a real pain point, right? It's really easy now. It's really good. And I think people get confused between the novelty of AI. Wow, like it wrote a poem for my birthday, amazing. And then actually going to a poet and saying, is this a good poem? Those are two very, very different questions.
Yeah.
And if you're a business owner, I would urge you to be careful about that sort of ease of pitfall, the ease of use, because you're going to see brands starting to speak in a more conversational way. Scenario-based writing, for example. I was looking at an article or a blog post that did a really good job of this around stopping your dog from crying in the crate. And one of the top-ranking pages, a bunch of the top-ranking pages for the query, what they do is I'm calling it scenario-based content or scenario-based SEO, and they're basically saying, if you're in this situation, try that. If that doesn't work and now this situation arises, try this, but be careful because this might happen if you try that. And that scenario-based content sort of tells you right off the bat that this person knows what they're talking about, this person has experience, they have expertise, and they're not just some sort of AI or some sort of content writer who knows nothing about the topic, just regurgitating this. And I think you're going to see a lot more user expectations around content that looks and sounds like that. So if you're thinking, well, in the here and now, AI might seem great, even if the content is good content. Let's just say for argument's sake, the AI can spin it out, it's accurate, it's good, it's fine. No matter what, it's going to lack in that experience, it's going to lack in that sort of scenario-based style. It's not going to be able to actually transmit real use. I've tried this. I asked ChatGPT to spin up, I just bought a Mustang for the first time. What's it like to drive it? And it first kind of gives you that, I'm a large language model, I don't know how to drive a Mustang, but you can eventually convince it that, no, imagine that you were a person. Could you now tell me what it's like to drive a Mustang for the first time? And it's really generic.
Yeah.
And brands are going to start to differentiate themselves, and search engines are going to start, and they already have, start including it in their algorithms to profile the language structure, to look for things that indicate actual expertise, actual usage, actual understanding, actual experience with whatever it is you're talking about to sift out. Let's just, maybe it's not all AI content, we'll call it low quality content. So if you're listening, you're watching this, don't fall into that trap. There will be a wave, an influx of AI content. Both users and search engines will be able to discern at a certain point that that's not what they want, and content consumption patterns will eventually change and shift in accordance.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think for me, where I agree with all of that. I think there's two things. I think a lot of small businesses that might be listening to this might go, yes, okay, my content won't be as good if I write it, right? So yes, I'm leaving that on the table. I'm not going to do that. But how efficient I can be and how many pages of content I could create to generate leads and to generate traffic and to generate sales. I might not be optimizing it as much as possible as if I'd written it by a content writer, but hey, I can scale 5 times the size, my website, 5 times the content output, 10 times, whatever. And even at a lower conversion, I'm still going to exceed what I'm doing now, right? And it's easier and it's quicker. So that, I think probably a lot of small businesses we speak to, if they could just click a button and have all their content written by AI, they would, even if they're sacrificing quality. But I think also the AIs are probably just going to get better. And I don't know what that's going to look like. We've worked with we implement GPT into the Hike platform, and we first started implementing it with GPT-3. So we have a feature that helps create optimized page titles and meta descriptions for users' pages based on the keywords they want to target and drive traffic for those pages. And 3 was impressive, but not that impressive, right? It's why no one really spoke about what they're talking about now, right, and the impact it's going to have in the world. But then when 3.5 and 4 launched, suddenly it's just like, it's so much higher. Like, it's order of magnitude better. So then what's 5 going to look like? Is GPT-5 or whoever next comes, are they going to be able to create, are they going to write content that's going to actually sound more and more human-like and be more scenario-based and just get better and better? So Matt, where I'd like to come to you for this is, we have a lot of clients that are location-based, right? Maybe multi-location, single location. What do you advise customers if they could? A lot of our customers, they might serve, an example, a plumber based in London, but they could create location pages for East London, West London, North London, South London, Croydon, et cetera, right? And if they could do that, and they can get a few visits from each, and they can knock out that content using ChatGPT or whatever, right? What would you advise to a customer coming to you saying that at the minute?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the oldest kind of local SEO strategies, right? It used to work. It used to work so well. It's a little bit more challenging now, and it's kind of local business getting up links to make those pages viable. I think if you're going after smaller geos, it does still work. I think obviously with the adoption of AI, and like you mentioned, it's probably like 6 out of 10 now. I think it will continuously get better, right? And we probably shouldn't evaluate it on what it is right now. Like you said, we should look at the evolution from ChatGPT-3, etc., and how that will grow. I think if it's the difference between not writing content and not putting up a page and doing it and not doing it at all, or doing it with AI, I think obviously put the page up. If you're a time poor small business owner, you don't have the time, that's better than doing nothing. I would still say if you don't have the time to write it yourself or edit it, be more creative in your prompts, right? And I feel like the problem with ChatGPT is it just kind of writes for the sake of writing. I think you need to start giving it more structure, right? And think, how is this helping the user? So in terms of your prompt, instead of saying, write me 600 words on plumbing in Croydon, which is not the most exciting topic to write about, you might start by saying, right, I need 600 words of content on plumbing SEO. I want it to include details on these 3 services. I'm then gonna add a section of why include us, and I think that's something I see. Business owners, maybe they've hired SEO agencies before, or they're just trying to get content for content's sake out. You've got to remember that ideally users will be reading some of it, and again, leaning into that small business owner, include details on your team, what makes you so great, talk about different jobs you've done in different areas. So if you're doing a page for Croydon, include a screenshot of Mrs. Smith who had a kitchen refit or bathroom refitted, by you and include local reviews for those pages. So some of that stuff can be helped with AI, but I still think there needs to be kind of human oversight to make those pages local. I think Google's going to have a bigger problem because they can only index so much of the web. And I think what's going to happen is all of these people are going to be pumping out 10x the pages they've had. And is Google going to invest more in making sure they index all of that, AI written content? Probably not. They probably don't care about it that much. Their focus is going to be, how do we reduce, how do we wean out that AI content? So how can you differentiate it from there is going to be the new challenge, similar to what Mordy said.
Yeah.
It's already happened, right? Indexing has been way harder for the last, I don't say, I'm terrible at time frames, maybe the last 2 years. You said SEOs have started noticing a very marked increased inability to get content indexed. And that's sort of the problem. For a particular page, it might be, okay, it's fine, I better to have the content. But then when you start looking at the quality of the website overall, and what it means for the quality of the website overall, and Google starts saying, hey, the quality of this website's not great, then the pages that you did write by hand and the pages that you do really want to have indexed, that do drive the traffic, Google might not even crawl them. Google might discover them, but not index them because of the quality issue across the board on the website. And then, of course, if you are doing things like, and this is not a new problem, right? I'm just spinning up a bunch of location pages and they're all the same. Google's like, well, they're all the same. Which one do I index? Maybe just this one and not the rest of them. Yeah. And that's a major problem.
Yeah, you could easily fall into the trap of cannibalization there. And like you're saying, that just being then detrimental to your core pages. You've spent a lot of manual time, labor of love to get done right. So you're not even getting those ranking. And I do think that will probably be something we'll see a trend of, which are tools which will just say, hey, we will fire up thousands of pages for you based on every variant of every keyword or every question that your customers may search, and we'll use AI to write them all for you, and you'll get X benefit. And like I say, if they're not even going to be indexed, it's kind of a waste of time. So that might.
Let's just say they are indexed, and let's say everybody's doing the same thing. John Mueller was talking about this the other day. So all the content will be like relatively the same. So now what? And how does Google decide to rank it? And it's going to rank it, by the way, based on the authority of the domain overall around that topic, which basically means your non-AI content.
Yeah, you can see, can't you? Like, there'll be some early adopters, and there probably really have been, that will win, but then it will just become more and more saturated. So, yeah, awesome. Okay, good stuff. So next, then, just conscious of time, and like I say, if anyone's got any questions, please put them down in the chat. We'll go through them at the end if there's anything there. Google search experience. So this kind of, I think from the non-SEO community, maybe flew a little bit under the radar. Just a recap for those that are unaware. So with ChatGPT launching and generative AI, Google saw that as kind of an existential threat to its search, right? You had Bing that introduced ChatGPT 4 into its results with Sydney and stuff. And so you search a keyword and it brings back a generative AI answer. Google, a little bit late to the party, have now shown us or told us what that's going to look like in their design, right? It's been coined Google search experience. Now, as you can see in the screenshot here, there's a search. Now it's a very long search, and I think this is where they see the benefit of generative AI for very long tail searches. And there's going to be a generative AI response first. Now that's going to take up a significant portion of the page, right? So where the organic listings could be pushed down further and further, right? This is the issue we've always had in SEO. PPC listings used to be 1, 2, 3. Now there's 4. Now there's no SEO until below the fold. And there might be some organic listings over here. What's this going to do for SEO, right? You're a small business owner. You still want to drive traffic. You still want to get those transactional terms. How's this going to impact the SEO visibility? So, I'll pass that over first to Matt. How do you think the Google search experience like this is going to significantly impact SEO traffic, or will it? Will it hinder it, or will it help it and get more traffic?
Yeah, I think it could go a couple of ways. I think a lot of the time, like somebody mentioned earlier, if it's informational type searches, I think websites are gonna lose traffic, right? Because the summary is in there. I still think for commercial searches where you need more information and AI is not always the best at giving you what you need, I still think you're going to need additional clicks and you'll go through. I think one of the challenges is that it's not super consistent, in as much as you can make the same search 5 times, you might get, 5 different results. And that might be because Google's still running a million tests on it, trying to work out what the best fit is. But I think in terms of traffic for local businesses, which is the kind of lens that I look at, I don't see it changing a huge amount in its current state. I think if you look at what the core fundamentals are of local and how you kind of win local businesses, you need to, fundamentals are fill out your Google business profile, make sure you've got all of your information and services on your website, because that's what AI is pulling from, right? Your Google profile. I think one thing that might change is there seems to be in the local searches a lot more emphasis on online reviews, which everyone has been saying are growing in importance every year. And this is like more evidence of that, right? And what we're seeing is that in the kind of summary in the local searches, they tend to be quite review heavy. If you look at the summaries that are left, a lot of that content is being driven by the review content. And that's because AI likes to have kind of conversational language. Well, what's the best way to get conversational language? It's typically through the reviews. So I think in terms of traffic, I think for those kind of low action commercial searches, i.e. I want a coffee, or maybe I'm an emergency locksmith and I'm locked out of my house and it's 2 a.m. and I'm drunk and I've dropped my kebab on the floor and I just need to be let back into my house.
This happened to you, Matt. This sounds like a real life.
This happens every weekend. So, but the first time I made that search, right, I'm not going to do a huge amount of research. I'm just going to go for the quickest one, and optimizing for AI is probably very important when this rolls out, because you're not going to have a lot of research. But again, I think for service-based businesses where there's more, it's a higher spend, there's more, you're going to meet this person, it's going to be, a higher investment for you. I still think you're going to get the clicks through to the website versus just relying on the AI.
Yeah. And Mordy, what do you think? Do you see the same in terms of there being a distinction between, if we put it, informational and transactional keywords? Do you see it being used less so for transactional?
I don't necessarily see the split in terms of the intent. Obviously, that is a good point. Like, obviously, a commercial, you're going to want to go to a website, you're going to want to contextualize it. It's the same thing with, buying, straight from Google versus going to the webpage and really understanding the context. There's studies that show you just want context before they make a purchase. I do think that, like, it's almost like, it reminds me very much of, let's go back 10 years ago, and I searched for weather in New York City, and there was nothing on the results page. I had to go to a website, and I had to go to the weather, I don't know, the AccuRanker or the Weather Channel, and see what the weather was. And now I just go weather New York City, and there's a big box there that tells me it's sunny. I don't have to read anything. It's a big picture of the sun, and it tells me that it's sunny.
Yeah,
it's very much the same thing. From a fundamental point of view, this is basically a very long feature snippet, which I've been saying for years. Like, feature snippets, depending upon the type of snippet and the type of result that Google's showing, like, you may not actually click through because the information's right there. So let's call it like top level informational content. I agree. Like, you're going to see less click-throughs. I think what you're fundamentally going to see is less, I call them like the Matlocks of websites. Matlock, by the way, is an old TV show with Andy Griffith that used to be on in the afternoon when I was sick as a kid. And you didn't really want to watch it, but there was 5 channels on. There was before cable. That's how old I am. And you're either watching Matlock or General Hospital or some other soap opera. So you're watching Matlock, and like, it's because there's nothing else. A lot of the traffic that websites get is because there's kind of nothing else. There's a lot of fluff out there, a lot of low-level content. And Google's kind of, either if there might be something out there and Google's still ranking that really, not great content. A lot of the overall macro traffic patterns or traffic numbers, I think, are inflated. And I think what you're going to see here is a decrease in overall traffic, but not a decrease to traffic to websites that are actually valuable. So, for example, in this particular case, I'm hiking Bryce Canyon with kids and pets and whatever. I might get the answer here, but I'm telling you, if I was hiking with my kids, this would not be enough. And I would click through to really see, like, what do the trails look like? I really want to understand, like, what does it look like? Because, like, my kid and rocks, like, don't get along. So the information might say, yeah, it's kid friendly, but I really want to get a better understanding before I take my 5-year-old on the hike, and I'll click through. What Google's going to do here is show, like, how do you determine what 3 websites show up here? Yeah. It's not based on the keyword they're optimizing for. It's less about the on-page SEO, which, going back to what we were saying before, it is still important to show that you're to help Google understand the content really easily, to help show your quality website. But what's fundamentally happening here is that websites that are entity-based, meaning websites that are their identity is about hiking the canyon or hiking the trail here with kids and a dog, which is what this query is about, are the ones that are showing up. So Google's sort of really going to hyper focus on site identity, or seeing your website as an entity. And if you're searching for, let's say, I want to go swimming in a lake with kids, but I don't want to lose my glasses, blah, 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 blah. Websites that talk about that fundamentally are going to be the ones that show up here. So you're going to see a lot of more identity-based ranking, meaning, I hate, that sounds way too political now that I say that. You're going to see, yeah, that didn't come out right. You're going to see websites that really focus on that topic, that are really authoritative and really niche about that topic, or that's what they fundamentally focus on showing up here. And what I think is going to happen is that the quality of the website ranking is going to be far more applicable and far more relevant and far higher than what you're typically seeing. So overall, traffic levels will go down from organic search, but I think what you're going to see is an uptick in traffic to the relevant sites, to quality websites, to websites that are really focused and really targeted around the topics that they're saying that they speak to.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the old adage of content is king.
Content is king, and crap content is out. Ironically, you would think that crap content would be in, because AI will help you write a lot of crap content. But in terms of the traffic coming from SGE, from Google Search Generative Experience, you're going to see a lot of the crap websites fall out, and Google only showing those that are very hyper focused and hyper entity around the particular topic that the user is searching for. So far better quality websites showing up and far more traffic going to them than the typical website.
Okay.
It's good for SMB, in my opinion, by the way.
Yeah, become an expert. I mean, that SMBs are experts in what they do, right? That's right.
You're the expert. Right?
Absolutely.
So write that great content, focus in on that, and you will have you could theoretically hit the word rank or out appear a bigger website in these particular cases, because you're able to focus in on the topic the way that Google really wants you to.
Yeah. Okay. I think we could probably stay on this for a long time. But what I'm going to do is, we've got 7 minutes left, so I'm going to head over to, so if I'm going to stop sharing here and head over to chat box, see if we've got any questions. Okay, so Georgia has a question. Matt, you mentioned that location pages, e.g. North London, aren't as effective anymore without links. Can you expand on this, please?
Yeah, so I think historically, the kind of average benchmark for what local businesses were doing in SEO was not a lot, because not a lot of people were investing in it. What I've seen now is this trend where people are starting to invest more in the basics, which means the baseline has risen, right? So what you used to be able to do is go out, get a few links, and let's say you're based in one part of London, you could throw up 30 service pages for quite big areas in London, and you could rank pretty well. And Google says, actually, that's a bit of a monopoly, right? So what now happens is, if you go for another big area, let's say you're based in I'll try and use UK geography. Let's say you're based in Brighton, and you want to rank for Shoreham, which is a town like 15 minutes away, right? You have to compete with all of the businesses that are actually based in Shoreham, that have their Google business profile listing there, that have all the content about Shoreham, that have their homepage title tag as, Plumber Shoreham, and all of their links are going, or most of their links are going into their homepage. And all of a sudden you kind of throw up, a page on your Brighton website for Plumber Shoreham. You're having to compete with basically, the expertise and authority that this entity has as a Shoreham-based plumber. So it's more difficult to rank those pages than it was, say, 5-6 years ago, where I saw that approach work well. What's a better approach is saying, okay, Shoreham's quite a big town, probably quite a big population, but if you're in a city and there's little, villages or smaller towns where maybe there's only 3 or 4 plumbers, and actually you think you can compete against those and rank for those smaller geos. I think that approach still works well. But certainly, if you're trying to get New York, Chicago, Boston, etc., location pages, you're just never going to compete with people that are based there.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. Next question from Kaufman's. I'm going to hand this one over to Mordy. How do we optimize specifically for AI? So I guess this is if generative AI is being trained, and if that's going to be powering Google's results at the top, you might say you don't know, but how can we optimize for that so that we're appearing at the top there?
Yeah, well, first off, Google's been using AI, or I hate to use AI. It's really machine learning. AI itself is a large language model. It's like not even machine learning. It's like lower than machine learning, which ironically we call it AI. Google's been using machine learning in their algorithm for a long time, and since 2015 with something called RankBrain. And the way the machine learning fundamentally works, and let's leave it like SGE aside for a quick second, it's like the results per se. It does kind of speak to SGE itself. Machine learning profiles, and Google's talked about this. Google said they do this, and basically it'll say, okay, like the keyword is heart attack prevention, and we're looking at the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Harvard Health, and we're going to profile and see how do the super authorities deal with the topic. What's their tone? What kind of content are they producing? How are they structuring it? What are they including? What are they not including? And then they're going to look at your website and say, hey, based on the profile we constructed, where do you fit in? For example, with say product reviews, Google says that you need to have firsthand experience with the product you're reviewing. It's very easy to take machine learning and say, hey, if you actually have used the product, the way that you write in the language structure that you're using is going to be different than if I just never use the thing and I'm faking it. So if I write like I'm reviewing a vacuum cleaner, I never used it. I'm like, yeah, it's great on carpet. But if I actually use it, I'll write, it's great on carpet, except when I tried to use it for my cat, my cat hair, it didn't suck it up well. Forget like the word, the language structure is totally different, and Google can profile that language structure. So profiling is basically how machine learning works, and Google understands whether or not you're aligned with the profile or not aligned with the profile. So fundamentally, you want to be aligned with how Google's looking at it. So if Google is looking at, let's say, websites that talk about hiking trails with pets, and saying, okay, like that kind of website needs to talk about X, needs to talk about Y, it needs to talk about Z. It shouldn't be too joking in the tone. Like it shouldn't just be like, thin content. The tone shouldn't be, overly personal, let's say. I'm just making that up. Maybe you do want to be overly personal in that vertical. I have no idea. You basically want to align with how Google's looking at that vertical, how Google's looking at that content, with how Google's looking at what a website that talks about X, Y, and Z should be doing. That's fundamentally how you align.
Okay, good answer. We've got two questions. First one, are question featured snippets in the SERP going to be replaced by these AI generated answers then? I think the answer to that is we don't know just yet. It's a good question, right? We have the featured snippets where we have the generative AI that replaces it. I don't know, unless Mordy or Matt, you know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer, but Google's in a weird place. And this is just, a real quick thing about SGE is that it's, my opinion, more about Google competing with Bing than it is about Google meeting user needs. Because if you look at what Google's been talking about, what Google's been doing over the past 2-3 years, it's got nothing to do with this. In fact, it's moving away from feature snippets. What Google's been doing, Google at one point wanted to double down on having the one true answer. And what they've been doing over the last 2 years before SGE came along was diversifying, showing more URLs. So features, not just one URL in the feature snippet, but say 2 feature snippets, one on top of the other one with 2 URLs, or a carousel that came out like in June that showed multiple URLs inside the feature snippet, because Google realized that users are more skeptical and they want more content diversity, which goes to the opposite way of what Google's doing with SGE. So I think at some point, conceptually, Google's going to have to sort of marry the 2 approaches. And I don't think what SGE will look like in a year from now is what it will be now. And I think it will be more diversified in terms of what URLs show up there. So in terms of featured snippets, it may replace featured snippets, but I do think it's going to be a little bit more diversified in what it's showing in there in terms of URLs and content than what it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Great. I think we'll have to wrap it up. George has asked a great question, but we've got 1 minute. Okay. It's a good question, right? Will Google increase the value of external links as AI content starts to saturate the web? It's one thing that I was kind of thinking when you were talking there, Mordy. It needs to understand if someone's an authority. It can do that via entities, but also it can do it via the backlinks. What do we think? I mean, it seems to make sense. It needs other ways of determining who's an authority. So potentially so.
I don't want to step on the link landmine. Matt, you want to?
Yeah, Matt.
Potentially, it would make sense. I don't have a huge amount to add to that.
No.
Because I feel like it is a bit of a landmine question. I don't want someone to play this back to me in 12 months.
Yeah, this is the one that we quote you for in a year's time.
I'll step on it. No, it'll be less. Google's kind of come out and said links are less important. I think that makes sense because Google's better understanding content. Then why rely on a secondary signal like links? So I'll step on the landmine. You can blow that up in 6 months from now when I'm completely wrong. Although I don't think I am. And
I think maybe just because I wonder if future iterations of GPT and other AI just become so good at content. Right. Okay. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much, Mordy. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us on this webinar. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you both have too. Is there anywhere you want to plug, somewhere people can go to find out more about you? Matt, starting with yourself and then Mordy.
You can find me on LinkedIn, Matt Coughlin, or Uberall.com. Maybe if you're an agency looking for some local focused tools.
Great. And Mordy, over to you.
I'm on Twitter at Mordy Oberste and LinkedIn. Look for the content I produce along with the wider Wix SEO team over the Wix SEO Learning Hub. It's wix.com/SEO/learn. And check out the Uberall integration in the Wix app market.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.